Hey, this is Max here, and in this tutorial I will show you how to use ActiveCampaign Custom Fields. So first we're going to talk a bit about what they are, how you can use them, how you can organize them, and then we'll show you a bunch of cool examples of how we can use them inside our automations. So let's dive right in. So first, what are custom fields? So it's actually really easy. You can use custom fields to store like information inside the profile of a contact. So if we go over to a contact here, then you see that we have a bunch of custom fields here. So they're just used to like store like little details about that contact. So standard custom fields are like a first name, a last name, a phone number, and basically also their email address. And then you can create new ones, custom ones, to, for example, in this case, store like a bunch of segmentation, like what kind of product are they selling, what is their biggest struggle, now I'm clicking it away, what is their biggest struggle, what email service provider are they using, what kind of help do they need, what's their monthly revenue, and then also a bunch of other ones which we'll talk about in a bit. Now, what can you use all these custom fields for? Now, for quite a lot of things actually. But I will start with the coolest one right away, and is that you can use them to personalize your emails with personalization tags. So that means that you can insert the value of a custom field inside your email. And I think that's already pretty cool. That's how a lot of people are already using them. But how not so many people are using them is that you can also use them to personalize your emails with conditional content. So you can like change paragraphs of text depending on the value of a custom field. So I'll show you how that works in a bit. It's really, really cool. Now, what you can also do is you can start an automation based on a date or when a value of a custom field changes. So imagine you have a custom field, it has a certain date in it, and then 6 months later, after the value of that custom field, you can start an automation. Like really cool stuff. Now, you can also split automations based on the value of a custom field with a if-else action. And yeah, what you can also do is you can just simply collect information in forms. So you can create custom fields and then you can create a whole surveys if you want, or like hidden custom fields to like figure out where they came from. Now, how should you organize your custom fields? That's the next thing we're going to talk about. So what I want to talk about is how you can create groups, how you can create custom fields inside those groups. And then I want to give you some examples that I'm using. I basically already just did that, but I will do it again. And then also I want to explain what kind of custom fields there are. So to create new custom fields and to manage your custom fields, you need to go to Forms and then to Manage Fields. And here you see an overview of all the custom fields that I already created. When you're here for the first time, you will only see this. You will only see first name, last name, email, phone number. And then the first thing that I want you to do is to create groups, because groups really help with like organization. And just when you look into a subscriber's profile, that you immediately know like, these custom fields are all about segmentation. So when you're here for the first time, go to Add Group and then just create a bunch of groups. So these are the ones that I'm using. Maybe you need different ones, so just feel free to change that to your own needs. But so we have general details, that's just the standard one. And then I would recommend to create segmentation, engagement. If you do something with messenger marketing, create a Facebook Messenger bot group. If you do webinars, create a webinar group. And then I would just create an others group for like other things that you can create. Now, after you've done that, you can add fields into those groups. So you can give your field a name. So here, for example, solution that people want. That's maybe a segmentation thing. And then here you can select in which group you want to add these people. And then you have a bunch of different field types. So I think most often you will use the text input. It's just the most flexible one. You can basically add everything into that. And you can also use a text area. I've never used this, but the text area is basically like, instead of like one line of text, you have multiple lines of text. So this is maybe handy if you're planning on doing surveys and you want to store data into a custom field like that. Then there is a date custom field, which is also really cool. I'll also show you some examples in a bit what you can use that for, but you can basically store a date in it and then trigger automations based on that date. Now you can also create a drop down option if you want. So that's like you can create here options, new option, new option. You see how you do that here, and then people just get like a little drop down menu like this in their forms. But also it's sometimes handy to manage things inside your automations. If you just know like, okay, I have only these few options, then it's better to use like a drop down than a text input, because then you avoid that you maybe make typos inside your text input. Now then you have a list box, works a little bit similar, but then people get like a little list of options that they can click, and then I believe they have to click shift, click another option if they want to select like multiple ones, but honestly I've never used this one, I didn't see a need for it. Then you have radio buttons. So yeah, it's basically like a list of options that they can click, and then they can only click one option. Then you have a checkbox. So yeah, you have checkboxes that people can check, and then you can add that to your forms. And then you have a hidden field. Now hidden fields are especially handy if you want to add something to your form to track where people, for example, are coming from. So imagine you're doing Facebook ads, you send them to like a landing page with your form, and then you want to track from which landing page they are, or like from which ad they are coming, and then you can store that into a hidden field, because the hidden field is not visible in the form. I hope you follow it. I know it's like a little bit complicated, but the most common ones that you will probably use are text input and date. Like at least these are the ones that I use most often. Now, and then you click add, and then they're added to your group. And even if you do that wrong, you can still like drag them around into other groups if you want. So yeah, here are just like some examples that I'm using. So in the segmentation group, I, for example, want to know what kind of product people are selling. So, you know, like I sell marketing courses. So it's just important for me to know like, okay, are you selling maybe an online course or a membership site or software as a service? Because then I can personalize my emails and to make it more relevant so that I can help people better. Now, what's also relevant for me is to know people, their biggest struggle. Like, do they, for example, struggle to grow their email list, or do they maybe struggle to convert subscribers into customers, or just like a bunch of different things. Now, what I also like to know is what kind of email service provider someone is using. So you're, for example, watching this tutorial, so I guess that you're using ActiveCampaign. So then I would add that into a custom field so that I can personalize my emails on that. Now, what kind of help do they want? Do they want to have an online course, done for you service? Do they not need help at all? Or do they need like one-on-one coaching? Now, monthly revenue, what's their monthly revenue basically? And then I can use all these things to personalize my email. So your segmentation fields are probably different. You probably have different segments, but just to give you some ideas, right? Now then engagement. So I think you probably need all of these. So in the engagement group, we have lead score or engagement score, where we track how many people, for like how many emails people are opening, if they're clicking links inside emails, how many pages on the website they're visiting, if they reply to an email, if they purchase something, like all kinds of different things. And then we add like points to this custom field. Then we have a last interaction field, which is a date field. And I'll show you an automation in a bit how that works, but that's really handy to keep your email list clean. And I also created a separate video about that, so I'll also link to that in the card that you see in the video right now. So in that we store the date that someone is opening an email, and then 6 months after the date we should trigger an automation to unsubscribe someone. And then something cool that I come up with is an engagement threshold. And that basically means how many emails they ignored. But I will leave that for another tutorial. That's rather complicated. So I would at least start with the last interaction and the lead score custom field. And then this one you can add later on. Now then the messenger bot. So I'm creating Facebook Messenger bots. I've also lots of tutorials about that. And then in that I want to store someone's ID. If they are subscribed to the bot or not. If like I'm still allowed to send them messages. And you can see, for example, that this is a drop down. So either they're inside the 24-hour window or outside the 24-hour window. So there I use that instead of a text input so that I cannot make any typos there. And then if you do webinars, then at least I think it's really cool if you can use the day the webinar is starting, the time the webinar is starting, the day the webinar is starting, and a separate join link to the webinar. So imagine someone signs up for my webinar, and then I have some automations who automatically populate all these fields. So then I can just tell people like, hey, the webinar is starting this Friday at 10 p.m. And by the way, that is on the 24th of March or something like that. And then, hey, here is your link. And then I can insert all these personalization tags inside the email to make that happen. Now, other things that I use is, for example, the current day. I have an automation that's automatically populating the current day of the week in the subscriber's time zone, so that I can use that inside my automations or inside my emails actually, so that I can say things like, hey, have a great Friday, for example. So here you also see that this is also like a drop down where I have all the days of the week. So again, I use like a drop down instead of a text input, so that I cannot make any typos there. Then I have an email validation custom field. So I use never bounce to like validate all my email addresses if they're not like spam email addresses. So yeah, to check if they're actually valid, and then I put that in a custom field, and then there are some automations that are doing things with that. And then a multi-field, which I basically use for like random things that I only need really shortly, that I can just put that in there. So yeah, that's how I organize my custom fields. So I don't say that this is the best way, but for me, this works really, really well. And yeah, maybe you need like other segmentation fields or like other groups and other things. So just like play around with that, but just make sure to keep things organized. Now, then I want to show you some cool examples inside ActiveCampaign. So I already mentioned a few. So for example, the last interaction custom field. And I think that this is a really important one actually. And I'm actually a little bit surprised that this is not built into ActiveCampaign, but I will show you how it works. So we're going to create an automation that's updating a custom field with the last interaction. And then we're going to trigger another automation 6 months after that date. So we go over to automations. I actually already created this here, update the last interaction. And it's actually a really simple automation. So we have a trigger at the top. So every time a contact reads any email, and the contact is also in any list, and we run it multiple times. So every time someone opens an email, this automation will start, and it will update this custom field last interaction that I just talked about with the current time. Now, it's a bit confusing that they call it the current time, because they actually add the current date into the custom field. And the same happens for when they click a link inside an email, because sometimes people block like the ActiveCampaign pixel that is like tracking if people open their email, but link clicks always work. So we just put them both in there, and then whenever they do any of these actions, then every time this automation will start, and the last interaction will be updated with the current date. And then we exit the automation. Next time they open something, they start again and again and again. So this custom field will always be updated with the last time that they opened an email or clicked a link inside an email. Now then you can create a separate automation that starts 6 months after the date inside that last interaction custom field. So the automation that I have for that is called the main list cleaner. It's actually a little bit of a big automation, but again, I created a whole separate tutorial about this. So if you want to know how to keep your list clean, just watch that. But I just want to show you how you can trigger an automation based on like a date. So you see that in here. So here, 6 months. You can also do weeks, days, years, and then you can also say after, before, or actually on, and then the last interaction. So you can then go to your contact fields and you can like look it up there. Here you see it. So because there is a date in here, and it's also a date type custom field, it's very important because otherwise it doesn't work. We can do this. And I think this is really cool because you can actually do like a bunch of different things with it. You could, for example, also, and I also showed you that. Let me see where it is. the webinar date custom field, you could also say, okay, 3 days before the webinar date, send a reminder email. 2 days before, 1 day before, send a reminder email. So this is like a really cool feature. But so in this example, 6 months after the last interaction, so 6 months after the last time that they opened an email or clicked a link inside an email, and then at 10 in the morning, this automation will start if they're not already currently in it, because I have like different triggers for it. But so if that, if it's 6 months after that date inside the last interaction custom field, then this automation will basically start, and they're going to get an email that says, hey, are you falling out of love? Please reply if you want to keep, if you want to stay on the list. Now, and then we wait until they reply, and then we continue the automation there. But again, I created a whole separate tutorial about this, so I will not go too deep into this. So that's that. Then, and this is maybe one of my favorites, it's email personalization. So I want to show you how you can use personalization tags, conditional content, and also how you can like check if your field is blank inside an email. And I think that's amazing that it is possible, and I'm quite sure a lot of people are not aware of that. So I have like one simple email here. I'll show you what it looks like. And there I put in all these things basically. So this email just notifies people of a new guide that I have about keeping your email list clean. So it's just an example, like your emails can be totally different, but I thought this is a cool example because I have all these things in it. So the first thing that you can do is you can check if a custom field is empty. So here, for example, you see that I start the email with, hey, first name, or hey, hey. So I'm using hey, hey, and then you see like this little box up there will show if first name does not exist. And this one will show if the first name exists. So if we know their first name, we will say, hey, John, hey, Max, whatever their name is. And if we do not have the first name, it just says, hey, hey. Now, how can you set this up? And also the next things that I will show you, you can like set it up by creating these boxes. You see here, like these black borders, those are like separate boxes. And you can create those by dragging a new text block inside your email. So here you see that we then have a new block, and then you can just like type it and style it however you want. So I will delete this now because obviously I already have them. So then you have to create separate boxes for that. And then you can set up conditional content for these boxes. So the condition for this here, and you can do that by going here, manage conditions, is that the first name exists. See, you can just like click this first name and then exist or does not exist. Now, so this one will show if the first name exists, and then this one will show if the first name does not exist. So yeah, that's like how you can check if your field is blank. Now, then I want to show you some conditional content. So that's really cool, I think. So here, for example, you see that we have the email and we say like, hey, John, a lot of marketers don't think about how they can keep their list of their clients clean. Next sentence is, a lot of online course creators don't think about how they can keep their lists clean. Next sentence, a lot of membership owners don't think about blah, 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 blah. A lot of SaaS business owners don't think about blah, 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 blah. So all these sentences are pretty similar, right? But the person who is receiving this email will only see one sentence. They will only see the sentence of the segment that they belong to. So here you see, for example, that in the box here above, will show if contact product custom field equals marketing service. So if the custom field is marketing service for that specific contact, then we show this sentence. A lot of marketers don't think about how they can keep the list clean of their clients. While someone who's creating online courses is not doing it for their clients, right? They do it for their own business. So then I change the sentence in, a lot of online course creators don't think about how they can keep their lists clean. And then you see here, product equals online course. So these are just like segmentations that I created, and then I can personalize the email based on that. And then you see also that we do that with the other ones. And then if that person does not belong to any of these segments, Then we check product does not equal marketing service, is not online course, is not membership site, is not software as a service. And then we'll say, we'll show if contact is all of the conditions. It's very important that you set this to all, because otherwise it will already show if one of them does not belong to the contact. And then we say OK. And then those people get an email that says, a lot of people don't think about how they can keep their list clean. So that's basically very general, right? Could apply to anyone. And then we just continue our email. The higher the numbers of subscribers, the better, right? Well, that's wrong. Then what did I say here? It's all about the quality of that list. Imagine you have 10,000 people on your email list. Now, blah, 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 the whole email. And then I will close off with, in the guide below, I will show you how to keep your email service provider list clean. So this is an example of a personalization tag. So you see also here, also this first name. This is a personalization tag that you can insert inside your email. So you do that like this. I will delete this one and I can do it again. You just click here, personalize, and then you look it up. You look up where it is. Here, contact email service provider, and then that is inserted inside your email. So what will happen then is that if I know that you are using ActiveCampaign, the email will say, in the sentence will say, in the guide below, I will show you how to keep your ActiveCampaign list clean. But if you're using MailChimp, I will say something like, I will show you how to keep your MailChimp list clean. So it's just like slightly more relevant. And then the conditional content for this is contact email service provider exists. So that just means I know what email service provider they're using. Then it will show this. If I do not know what they're using, then it will show this sentence. It will just say, in the guide below, I will show you how to keep your list clean. And then here, email service provider does not exist. So just a bunch of cool examples about how you can personalize your emails. This is just like a very simple example, but you can completely use this in every email that you have. It's a little bit more work to set up, but I think it's totally worth it, because this way you can like personalize your emails, you can personalize your whole funnel, and in the end, it will be more relevant, people will get more engaged, and in the end, you will get more people to grab their wallet basically, right? So yeah, that's how that works. And then one more thing I want to show you, or actually I want to show you more things, is that you can easily search for contacts that match a certain value. So this is handy if you want to add a whole segment into a new automation, or if you want to get an overview of how many people you have in a certain segment. So what you can do is you can go over to your contacts, and then you can here search for contacts, advanced search, and then you can basically create like a little condition. So here I would, for example, say email service provider, then here is, or like equals basically ActiveCampaign, and then I will get all my contacts that match ActiveCampaign. So if we then here look into John, now is John using ActiveCampaign? Now let's wait till this page is loaded, and then we see here ActiveCampaign. And if I would have searched for MailChimp, then John would not have appeared. Now one more thing I can also show you is you can also add custom fields here. So for example, if it's really important for you to know what email service provider are using, then you can get a complete list of all your contacts that belong to a certain field, for example, or belong to a certain segment. So here in this overview, you can immediately see like, okay, this is John, this is his email address, he has a membership site, he's using ActiveCampaign, this is his phone number, and this is the date that he was created. So I hope this tutorial helped you to understand how custom fields work inside ActiveCampaign. So the next tutorial is about tags inside ActiveCampaign. You see it on screen now, so be sure to watch that. It's a little bit similar to this tutorial, but then I'll just explain you what tags are, how to use them, also how to organize those, and also a bunch of cool examples. So if you like this tutorial, then give it a little thumbs up. That will help me a lot. And if you want to see more marketing automation tutorials, then be sure to subscribe. All right, I see you in the next one.